Okay. Is that okay with everyone?
Thank
You're
you.
recorded. Okay, so perfect. So what I'm a 10.25 because I love this EOS system. I recently got involved with it about a year and a half ago. And I've already helped 7 companies implement it, and they rave about it. Some of them are in the forum groups that you are members of, and I just really love it. So we're going to do an introductory 90-minute meeting, and it's just going to tell us more about this whole thing, what it's all about. And it's also modeling the weekly meeting that we use in EOS. We call it the 90-minute meeting, which is normally on a Tuesday morning once you've got EOS implemented. But we're going to cover specific points in this 90 minutes. The first one is about us. I'm going to tell you a little bit about EOS and also about myself so that you know we've done it before and I'm not here practicing on it. Okay. Step 2 is going to be about yourself. Normally, when it's one company, we go into a little bit of depth, but today I'll just ask you some questions for you to reflect on and to take away afterwards. Then we're going to speak about the tools. This is where I'm just going to open the fire hose because there are tons of tools in EOS, and I'm going to sort of hit you with everything we've got so that you get an idea of it. Don't get overwhelmed. Don't feel bombarded. It's just so that you get a taste of it. And then lastly, we're going to speak about the process. So that's the EOS, how this process is implemented in your business and how this process runs in your business. So those are the 4 steps. That feels good to me. We'll move to step 1. Are you all with me? Give me a thumbs up if you're ready. You're good? No questions? Okay, perfect. So let's get started. First of all, about us, about the EOS. Now, Gino Wickman has been an entrepreneur since the age of 21. At 25, Gino Wickman is the author of the book Traction. If you haven't read it yet, that's a highly recommended book. At 25, he was called in to run his family business and found that there was a need of a turnaround. So he worked with the leadership team to turn the company around, and it took it about 3 years to do it. He ran the company for 7 years and ultimately sold the organization. And he spent a year and a half transitioning in the new leadership team and then retired from it. But during the same time, he became one of the 10 original members of the EO Detroit chapter. And in working with the other members of that chapter, he discovered that he had a real knack to implement the systems for others. So when he retired, he decided to pursue that knack and passion full time. He began then cobbling together the EOS system, which is just a set of simple, real-world practical tools. It's timeless concepts that have been around for thousands of years, and he just brought that into something that we can all use. Now, the power of EOS is that you're not going to find any magic pills or silver bullets in anything that I share with you today. Since Gino started creating EOS, he and I and another 200 implementers around the world have conducted over 40,000 full-day sessions, and we've got about 6,000 organizations running EOS today. Okay? So when we are working with our leadership teams, we might make them better at 3 things we call vision, traction, and healthy. You'll hear that quite a bit. Vision, traction, and healthy. Now, vision just means we get everyone in the company 100% on the same page with where you're going and how you plan to get there. That's vision. Traction means instilling discipline and accountability throughout your organization. So no matter where you go, you see people executing on your vision. And healthy means you are making a more cohesive, functional, open and honest, fun-loving team, because most of the time, companies are not like that. Open and honest is a very big component of it, because if we're open and honest, we can identify issues immediately and we can go from there. So most of the companies we work with have between 10 and 500 employees. Their owners and leaders are growth-oriented and open-minded. It's incredibly important. If the owner or the team isn't growth-oriented, this is not going to be successful. They must be willing to be open and honest and vulnerable with themselves and the people around them. And a very important part is they're more afraid of the status quo than they are of change. because they know if you don't constantly change, you're going to go out of business. So that's our clients. And now my own background, you all know me from McKay Forums. I myself was a businessman. I also was a for-hire CEO. I ran a transportation company with 110, 115 employees and 75 trucks, 22 million in sales. So I've got that experience, and I've implemented this system. I actually implemented some other systems first until I discovered EOS. And since discovering EOS, I said, no, this is the best system because it brings the people component plus the data and the traction component plus the vision component together in a seamless whole. And I became passionate about it, so I started implementing this. And as I said before, I've done 7 companies now, and they're still running. So that's where we are. This is about us. Now let's turn a little bit about you. And I want you to think about you, just a brief history of your company, what your revenue are, what your employees are, what your type of business is. And I want you to write down on a piece of paper, what is your number 1 business goal? What are your 3 biggest challenges or 2 AM thoughts? What is your 3 greatest strengths? What is your meeting effectiveness today on a scale of 1 to 10? What is your organizational alignment around your plan on a 1 to 10? And lastly, how accountable are people in your organization, your organizational accountability? I'll just be quiet for a second if you just write those things down for yourself. Don't overthink it, just a quick number. Okay, give me a thumbs up when you're done. Thanks, Gina. No novels, just quick. Thanks, Joy. Thanks, Krista. Thanks, Nancy. The 2 gentlemen are writing books today. War and Peace, Mein Kampf.
Nico, what is meeting effectiveness? What do you mean by that?
So how effective are your meetings? Do you have short meetings and people walk out of those meetings exactly knowing what they need to do? Or do you have tons and tons of meetings and there are meetings because of meetings and people aren't very effective? They walk out of there and they're not on the same page and they just call another meeting and some people shouldn't be in the meeting, that type of stuff.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, perfect.
Thanks.
Okay, so just keep that for a little bit. Afterwards, when I follow up, I'll ask you about those questions. We're not going to share them today because I want to move on and tell you about the tools. Okay, so first of all, we looked at about us as EOS and Nico, and that is about you as a company and where you're going to go. But then I want to go to the next step and talk about the tools. I'd like to illustrate to you what it looks like when all of our work is done at the end of a journey, and I take with all my clients. The best way of doing this is to talk about the tools that we have and the process that we're going through. So the tools that we use, the first thing is the EOS model. We call it the EOS model. And this one says that if you look at any model, any business, we put that in the business in the middle. And the model was developed when we discovered that all entrepreneurs, all leaders, all people working with organizations that grow and evolve tend to wrestle with 136 issues simultaneously. I don't know how they came up with 136, but it's 136. Those are those thousands of thoughts in your mind, 2 o'clock in the morning. And that discovery tells us that to the extent you can strengthen the 6 key components of your business, those 136 issues just tend to fall into place because they're nearly all really symptoms of the true root cause. So when we put the business in the middle, we have 6 key components, and we call them that. The first one we call the vision. Okay, the vision component is to get everyone in your organization 100% on the same page with where you're going and how you plan to get there. I'm going to do a first round through the model so that you get an idea of the 6 key components, and then we're going to come back and we're going to visit each one of these components again so that you get more of an idea of what we do there. The second one is the people component. Very simply, you cannot achieve a great vision without great people. And the truth is, every organization defines great people differently. When we spend a little time on the tools and disciplines, we're going to cut through all the wonderful terms out there, like A players and superstars and top quartile and whatever you call them, and really get to the heart of what makes for great people in your unique organization. Okay. The next one is the data component. That's the third key component. This is running your business on facts, figures, and objective information. Rather than feelings, egos, subjective emotions that often drive decision making in an entrepreneurial organization. What happens when you strengthen the vision, people, and data components in your organization is that everything becomes transparent and crystal clear. All of the impurities, imperfections, problems, challenges, and obstacles just jump right out of you if you have those things out in the clear. Then the fourth key component we call issues. Strengthen the issues component is just getting really good at solving your problems as they arise. You cannot achieve success if you're not great at setting your problems up as they arise and then knocking them down and making them go away forever. Most of the companies I work with have had issues in their company that have been running for years, sometimes up to 7 years. They never really solve the issue because they're working on the symptoms, not the root cause of the issue. And that's one of the strengths of this system. That's issues. Then the fifth one is process, the process component. Strengthening the process component is just getting all of the most important stuff in your business done the right and best way every time. It creates consistency and scalability in your business. It makes it easier to manage, more profitable, and more fun. And then the last and the sixth component is traction. Now, by traction, we mean it's about bringing your vision down to the ground level and executing on it day in and day out. There's no coincidence that vision is at the top of the model and traction at the bottom. If you can't bring your vision down to the ground and execute on it well, there's a very good quote we say, vision without traction is hallucination. Vision without traction is hallucination. And there's lots of companies with tons of vision, but they're not executing well on it. In a minute, we're going to talk about the 2 tools or disciplines we use to strengthen each of these components and what help you bring more to your business. So those are the 6 key components. The 6 key components together make up the EOS model. And EOS just stands for Entrepreneurial Operating System. The question I get quite a bit is EOS just for small companies that are very entrepreneurial? And I say no, it's for any company or any organization that wants to grow and is growing and evolving and has these 6 components that they want to bring together. So EOS is a way of harmonizing and orchestrating all the moving parts of your organizational business to help you run a better business and, frankly, live a better life. Because if you can get that 136 thoughts out of your mind and focus on 6 things, you can actually make progress. You can actually sleep at night. Because that journey that we're designing together is to strengthen these 6 key components of your business, and that takes you forward. Now, we make the assumption that you're in the right market and you're selling the right products or services into the market. Okay? If you're not, there's nothing we can do to help you. If you're doing the wrong thing in the wrong place, it's not going to help you. Or this is about execution. But if you're in the right market, EOS and the strengthening of the 6 key components will help you achieve everything you want to achieve with your business. Okay? And when I talk about strengthening the key components in the EOS model, we measure progress on the journey together using a scientific but subjective scale of 0 to 100% strong. We're working to strengthen each component, get it to 100% strong, knowing that it is impossible. You cannot get everything 100%. It's called utopia. It's not going to happen. Our goal is simply to get you to 80% or better in each one of those components. But as in anything, if you have an amazing vision, but your traction is at 20%, it's not going to be a successful business. The 20% is going to determine the strength of the business. Or your people are phenomenal, but your processes are terrible. It's not going to help. So it's more important to get everything around the wheel at the same level and grow together in sort of a balanced component. Okay. So we're going to now, I'm going to illustrate to you what we do to get you, your organization, your business on a place of 80% or better, because this model will then help you run a better business, but then there's also the thing of having a better life. Okay, so let's go through it a little bit more with detail. And what we've seen is most companies, when we start, are at about 20%. They may be great at certain of these components, but they are at 20% overall because it's the weakest link that determines where they are. Okay? So that's the EOS model. Okay, so let's look at a little bit more detail. First of all, when we go into this, the first thing we develop is a thing called the Vision Traction Organizer. It's a simple 1-page document. Well, it's a little bit cheating. They always say it's a 1-page document, but it's 1 page, 2 pages folded together, so it makes 1 page, okay? And it's got the model at the back and the model at the front. And we developed this so that every person in the organization has a copy of this at the end. So they're all on the same page. So this is what we're starting to develop now. The first thing is called vision. And vision, if we look at it in more details, we answer 8 questions. First of all, as part of the workshops that we do. The first one is, what are your core values? What is your core focus? What is your 10-year target? What is your marketing strategy? What is your 3-year picture? What is your 1-year plan? What are your quarterly rocks? And what is your issues list? I'm going very fast now. We'll look at them more in detail later on, but we're answering those 8 questions together because that's what it's based on. And so it goes on to the Vision Traction Organize. So there's the core values, the core focus, the 10-year target, the marketing strategy, the 3-year picture. This is the vision component. And then the traction component, the 1-year plan, the rocks, and the issues. Okay. And this VTO, or Vision Traction Organizer, is the tool that we use to bring this all together. Okay. It's a very, very powerful tool that will help you crystallize the vision for your organization. And it also gives people the, shall we say, the faith that this business is doing it, the confidence that this business is on a track, and that the leadership team knows where it's going. Okay. So let's look at, first of all, what these questions look like. First of all, the core values. Now, Most organizations have values that got them identified. We're speaking about core values, and they're just an essential set of guiding characteristics that define who you are at the core and what you want from the culture of your organization. A big mistake I've seen many companies make here is they've got aspirational values, but they don't really have it at their core. We're not interested in those. We actually look at your core values. What have you got inside your organization today that you can build on? And I'll take you through a discovery exercise to help you discover the true core values of your unique organization when we do the exercise. And we actually look at who are your best employees and what their values are, present or in the past, and we build it on them. Then later in the people component, I'll explain to you exactly how we're going to use your core values to attract great people to your organization, people that fit your culture, the kind of people you want to be surrounded with, and repel people who aren't a great fit to your culture. Repel, get them away. That's what core values is. And this is where the discipline starts, because this is where this is all very important. Then we're going to look at core focus. Now I'm going like a freight train. You guys know me. If I go too fast, just stop me, okay? Krista, it's your first exposure, so I apologize. Nancy will give you counsel afterwards. But if I go too fast, just say, Nico, stop, okay? But the next thing we're talking about is core focus. The second question on the VTO is, what is your core focus? And the core focus is the sweet spot of your organization. And it's been called a million things in the history of business. Some people call it the vision statement. Some call it the mission statement. Stephen Covey calls it voice. And Jim Collins calls it the hedgehog concept. And I apologize for throwing another consulting term at you. We call it core focus because it comes from your core. And once it's clearly defined and articulated, the trick is to stay laser focused within that core focus so that you're always working within your sweet spot. And we've got an exercise to do that, okay? Then the next thing is your 10-year target. And see, this is a target. We have a 10-year target, a 3-year picture, and a 1-year goal, okay? So your 10-year target, this is just a long-range big goal for your business. And the time frame can be a little bit flexible, anything from 5 years out to 30 years out, depending on the business. Some businesses are more, shall we say, long-term stable than others. It is clearly articulated, a simple #1 business goal for your organization, and it gets you all on the same page with where you are going long-term. So where are you going to be in 10 years? Once we have that in place, we move on to the marketing strategy, okay? Your marketing strategy is simply designed to get you all on the same page with who you should talk to and what you should say to get the biggest return on your investment and precious sales and marketing energy. There are 4 parts to the marketing strategy. First of all, we define the target market, and we have what we call the list. This is simply a description of the people that you want to attract and go to and where to find them. Then we have something called the 3 uniques, where any of those, if you can bring those 3 uniques together, they make you as an organization or as a company unique. Each one individually may not be unique, but the combination of the 3 makes you unique. There's a proven process and a guarantee, okay? So the proven process is a 1-page visual illustration of the way you take care of your customers from the minute they start thinking about doing business with you to the time they're long-term established business partners of yours. And it's something like, you've seen this, and I'll show it later on. This is the proven process for EOS, and I'll show that later on. But it's just a graphical representation of the journey that you have with your clients, and that gives them that, shall we say, that assurance that this is a company that will be with me on the long run, and I'm there in the process now, and I'm there in the process now. And the guarantee is just a pledge or a promise that reduces the fear of adoption. It eliminates objections that you may face in the sales and marketing process, and it's something that helps people really when they're making sales. So these are the 4 components that make up the marketing strategy. Once you are 100% on the same page with your core values, your core focus, your 10-year target, and your marketing strategy, you will know who you are at the core, what you love to do, and best at or best at with your core focus, where you're going long term, and how you're going to get there with your marketing strategy. This is the vision of the organization. Okay, now that all bring us together. Now the next thing is we need to now start crystallizing the vision for the organization. And the next thing that we do is, okay, now we need to look at the 3-year picture. We've got our 10-year target, which is far away, but we need to now start bringing it to traction. So what is the 3-year picture? This is not a detailed 3 to 5 year strategic planning process we're going through here. All we're trying to do is get every member of your team to crystallize and visualize exactly what this company needs to look like 3 years from now, so that we can reach that 10-year target. And we use visualization because that's a way that inspires people. And I don't know if some of you have used vision boards before. I use them all the time as a tool, because if the pictures are in your mind and you see it there, it happens. And if you can make that come to life, that will take you forward. Because if you can see the same thing in your mind's eye and the whole team sees it together, the chance you're going to achieve that vision becomes significantly higher. We start by quickly defining your revenue, profits, and measurables. What does this company need to achieve? What does this company need to achieve 3 years from now to lay the foundation for your 3-year target, your 10-year target? Then you'll see 5 to 15 bullet points underneath the question. What does it look like? This is where we describe this, where we have our picture. And we paint a clear picture of what the organization needs to look like 3 years from now on the way to achieving your vision. When this 3-year picture is clear, there are 2 great benefits. When the whole team can see the same 3-year picture in their mind's eyes, the chances that you're going to achieve it is so much stronger. And it also now sets you up for great 1-year planning. Because now you can say, okay, we've got the 10-year target, we've got the 3-year picture. Now for the 1 year, we need to build this so that we can get to the 3 year. Okay, so this is where we now turn the page and we go on the VTO to the next page, and we look at the shall we say, the traction component. The first thing we do is the 1-year plan. And the 1-year plan, you'll see that we use the same format as the previous document, because we need to see what that future date is, what the revenue is that you want to have by then, what your profit is going to be, and how are you going to measure this? How are you going to measure success? And that's what we do. And now we start getting to priorities. We have goals now. We focus on 3 to 7 goals, not 23 goals, not 14 goals, 3 to 7. That's the discipline of it. And we, every time with a new client, starts here with about 24 goals. And we bring it down, prioritize them, bring them to 3 to 7. Because when everything is important, if you have 23 things, nothing is important. And one of the processes in EOS is that we need to simplify and have the saying, less is more. And once we've got 3 to 7, we've set 3 to 7 clear aligned goals that we want to drive in the next year. And the whole team can get their heads around it. So then the next thing that we call as quarterly rocks. Okay, sorry, I'm going like very fast. But quarterly rocks are the 90-day stuff. And you know, we all live in a 90-day world, and they're just 90-day business priorities. Getting all of us 100% on the same page with what's most important that we need to focus on over the next 90 days. Creating a 90-day world for the organization. We start by predicting revenue, profit, and measurables. Then we identify 3 to 7 priorities for the company over the next 90 days. And ultimately 3 to 7 priorities for each of the people around the leadership team as well, because we've got company rocks and we've got individual rocks as well. And we want to drive the process of the people as well around the table. And it creates discipline, focus, and accountability. So we are executing on our vision every 90 days. So that's really important. Then the next thing we come to is the issues list. Now, the issues list we start building from the first day. Whenever there's something that we don't have a solution for, it comes on the issues list. And that comes out of your vision, your people, your data components. But when all of these things are strong, the organization is going to become very transparent. You're going to have a lot of impurities, imperfections, needs, challenges, and obstacles. Okay. So once we get the issues out of your head into your issues list, we've answered the 8 questions. We've also answered all 8 questions. We're all on the same page. And it's a simplified approach to strategic planning. So those are the 8 questions of the VTO. Okay. And the last component, let me just get there, is those 8 questions are answered through workshops. And then we have something that we say is shared by all. And this is something that many people forget to do. We need to get that vision shared by everyone in your organization. All of them need to have a copy of this. They all need to understand it. And the information in there needs to be of such a nature that you can share it with everyone in the organization. If there are 40 people in the organization, all 40 need to understand it. If there's 500, all 500. And you have to tell them. That's the first thing. You have to get them in a room with all of your people quarterly and give a quarterly state of the company or organization address. Quarterly. And you need to share with everyone in the organization your vision and plan. Why quarterly? Because we work on quarterly rocks, and every quarter those rocks change. So the VTO gets updated every quarter. And that's how you drive the process all the time. Ultimately, we get to the point where all 40 of these people are rowing in one direction, trying to help you achieve the same vision and plan that you all share. And because it's got pictures in it, because it's got targets in it, everyone can understand it. Not to get all kumbaya on you here, but in the extent that you can get everybody in the organization focused on one vision, rowing in one direction. Planets line up in the universe in ways we can't even explain, and magic happens. Okay? That's strengthening your vision component, getting you to 100% strong. Okay, 100% strongness. You've got all of those questions answered, and it's shared by all. So that's the first component of it. Now let's look at the people. I've gone to quite a bit of detail in vision. The others I'm not going to go in as much detail because otherwise I'll exhaust all of you and overwhelm you. But let's look at the people. And people is really just 2 components. The first one is right people, and the next thing is right seats. I'll talk about right people first. Okay. I don't know if you guys have read Good to Great by Jim Collins, the book most people have, and he speaks about right people in right seats. Okay, right people are those people who share your organization's core values. And we've got the first question on your VTO was the core values. Now, if you look at the people in your organization, first of all, we test them and see if they consistently exhibit your core values and that they fit your culture like a glove. And a tool we use for that is something we call the People Analyzer. This allows you to assess all of your people as to whether or not they consistently exhibit your core values. It also facilitates clear, effective communication with them about where they are falling short or where they're succeeding. And it helps you drive culture and get all your people to feel like they're the right people. That's incredibly important. Okay? Right people are people who are good at their job. They're people with a God-given talent, skills, and experience, ability, and desire to be great at their job. And we've actually got a tool we call it GWC. They get their job, they want their job, and they've got the capacity to do their job. That's one of the exercises we do. And the tool we use to get people in their right seats is called the accountability chart. Okay? And the way that works is we get together, take a big step back, and we work together to identify the right structure for your organization. The accountability is based on the assumption, the basic belief, premise or belief that every organization has only 3 major functions. And I'll get to that in a little bit. So right seats mean, let me just get a little bit here, because That's the people analyzer. Sorry, I didn't let the slides go forward. That's what the people analyzer looks like. And that's how we put the people in the people analyzer, with those being the values of the organization at the top. And they get tested against it. And in these columns, we put, they get their job, they want their job, and they've got the capacity to do their job. That's the people analyzer. And then in the right seats, we start with the accountability chart. And the accountability chart starts with the premise that every organization has three main functions: marketing and sales, operations, and finance. And they may have different names, they may look differently, but that's the basic premise that every organization has. And then that there is also in that there has to be a person called the integrator. The integrator is the person that brings all of the functions together. That person beats the drum of the organization. It's also called the glue that holds everything together. And the person who drives accountability and harmoniously integrates the way the leadership team members play together to achieve a common vision. So that's the integrator. Okay. So in the marketing and sales function, we speak about how you go out into the marketplace, create demand, and turn that demand into orders. The operations functions is where do you build the product or deliver the service or both? And then the finance function, how do you track your money flowing in and out of the organization? How you deal with financial controls, acquire and manage assets, etc. So that's the basic premise we work with. Then if we go further, there's also the fundamental belief that there's in every organization a visionary component. Now, the visionary component, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, is the person who's outside the organization often, is the person with a big picture, the relationship builder, the person who is not driving the day-to-day of it. And we'll speak about that in a little bit, okay? Now, sometimes you can build on this, and marketing and sales and all of these people, you need to make sure that every person has got 5 roles described for their positions, okay? And those 5 roles are there for an overhead look at how people are working together in the team and who's accountable for what. If you have long job descriptions and it becomes very complicated, it doesn't drive the accountability chart. You just need 5 roles per person. And if you have the right seats, people are then throughout the organization placed in a place where they are reporting to one person going up the accountability chart. And as you can see here, as you go forward, marketing may split up into different departments. Sales, operations can have different things, but the point is each person's got 5 roles and reports to one person going up. And the visionary is at the top and the integrator is there. Okay, that is the people one. Now, if we speak about the people, there can be certain people issues in your organization. And we speak about right seats. When you use these tools and follow this process, you're going to encounter 2 distinct people issues in your organization. Issue number 1 is where you have the right person in the wrong seat. The good news is you have seats in your organization, so you can find a better seat for that person if that's possible. If you can't, as tough as that is, I'm going to urge you to make a change. If you're in a non-profit organization, you can't keep a bunch of people around just because you love them and they fit your culture. Okay, and this is where the Joy just fell off the deck when I said that. That's one of the disciplines of the EOS system, is that certain things are really black and white when you come to that place. The second issue is where you have a wrong person in the right seat. They are great at their job, they're hitting their numbers, they're highly productive, but they don't fit your culture. They're chipping away at your culture right now in little ways that you don't even see. And here, you need to make a tough change when that's the case. It feels wrong because that person is very productive, but they're chipping away at your culture, and you need to make a change for the long term. Long term, they're doing more damage than good. They're going to kill you in the long run. And that's part of the people component. Okay, so, and the people component, that's how we handle it. Let's move on to data. Any questions? Am I going too fast? All good? Joy?
Nico, I didn't step out because you pointed at a nonprofit. I stepped out because someone was reaching.
Oh, I just thought it was hilarious, the timing. Thanks, Joy. Thank you so much. Okay, let's move on to data. Okay, so data, I'm going to go a little bit faster because we're running out of time a little bit, but the data, strengthening the data component is all about boiling your business down to good, solid, hard data. Really running your business on data rather than feelings, emotions, and egos that often drive processes in some organizations. The first thing we're going to speak about is the scorecard. Now, the scorecard is 5 to 15 high-level numbers that you give an absolutely pulse on your business. It's a tool designed for the leadership team to give you an absolute pulse on your business, what's working and what's not working. And I'm going to work through an example just to give you an idea. Okay. First of all, the people in the leadership team are listed on the left-hand side. Who is accountable? And there are 5 to 15 weekly numbers, not more. 5 to 15. There's the discipline again. And these numbers are looked at every week in the level 10 meeting. Okay. The first one is you're going to have measurables. And that measurable needs to be something that's going to tell you what is going on in the business in a specific area, linked to your goals and your rocks, so that you can see what is on track and what's not on track. Okay. And that's the weekly one. Then the next one is a goal. What is your goal for that measurable? Where do you want to go? If you want to be where you need to be in a year, where you want to be in 3 years, where you want to be in 10 years, what is your goal to get there? That's the next thing. And then the next thing is for 13 weeks at a glance, every week, one of these columns are filled out. The idea is that you can always have 13 weeks in a running sheet, and you can see them, and you can see trends, and you can start making predictions. But you can also see that you have an absolute pulse on the business, and you get alerted if something is off track. You see the red numbers wherever they are. And you can also see if certain things, maybe the goal was set too low or too high. If we're consistently easily making the goal, maybe that's something that is set too low. Or if we never make it, maybe it's set too high. Okay. And the measurable, it helps you also see everyone in your organization, how they're working, because you have this scorecard, but you also have it at the department level. And every person in your organization becomes responsible for at least one weekly number that they drive. So everyone in the organization knows this is what I need to do this month or this week for the report that goes in on Tuesday for my department head or whatever. So every person gets involved in the scorecard. And we boil this discipline all the way down to the organization where everyone feels like they're accountable for helping hit your numbers every week. And that's what 100% strong looks like when you have a scorecard, okay, with the measurables. When you have that in place, 100% strong, and this is looked at every week, that is your data component. Okay, let's go to the issues component. Okay, the good news here is that the good news with smoking out all of your issues is that there's only ever 23 issues in the history of business. Again, I don't know how they came to the 23, but apparently all the issues come back over time. And we have to get really good at solving them as they arise, solving them at the root, making them go away for the long-term greater good of the organization. The first tool we have is the issues list, and you've seen it before, and it's part of the 8 questions. But I want to make sure that you understand that this issues list is about migrating a discipline and a culture down into your organization, where everyone feels absolutely comfortable raising their hand and acknowledging or calling it out when they feel there's an issue, because you're open and honest and it's part of your culture. Saying we've got an issue so that all your issues get on a list somewhere throughout the organization. Once we do that, we have a process of solving the issues, and we call it the IDS, it's the Issues Solving Track, or IDS. And it simply stands for identify the issue, discuss the issue, and solve the issue. Identify, discuss, and solve. And what I've seen is that sometimes we don't spend enough time on the first part, the identification of the issue. Someone says this is the issue. Say, for instance, cash flow. Our cash flow is not working, or we don't have enough cash flow. If you see it, say that is an issue, and you have some short-term, shall we say, band-aids to try and fix the cash flow, it's not the real issue. You need to ask, why is the cash flow an issue? And then you have to ask, if you get that answer, why is that? What is causing that? And sometimes you need 5 whys to get to the root behind it. Maybe we're not going out and finding enough clients. Maybe that's the point, because we're not bringing cash in. Or maybe we're spending too much. And you have to go down. Or, for example, if people say morale is an issue, and they say COVID is the issue, that's too wide. You've got to break it down to a place where you can say, okay, if we solve this, it'll take care of the other stuff. And that's the number 1 part of it, where you have to break it down on the issues list. So many times, if you just solve an issue quickly and it's not fully solved, it'll come back again. But if you solve it properly, it won't come back again. And your issue solving track, which is identify, discuss, and then solve the issue, help you to have it. Once the issues are on your list, there's your issues list. You first of all have to prioritize them. And then Andy S is the right seat. That person is not on the right seat. Often we keep those people for many months, years, but if that is identified by the whole team as the number 1 issue, we have to solve it together. That department head who's really maybe holding Andy in that place has no other option than to work with us. And then we work together, we discuss it openly, and we come up with a place of solving it. And once we solve it, that one goes away, and we go to the next one, and the next one. And so they go away one at a time. Those issues are done. Okay. And 100% strong is what we do. Okay. Let's move on to the 5th key component, is the process component. And here's how it works. Every business has a handful of core processes, 6 or 10 that make the business run. Okay. There are HR processes. There may be marketing processes, sales, operations might split up in more. Accounting, we have customer appreciation, all sorts of things, though, customer service, all of those core processes. And there are a handful of truly core processes. And we say that to have those processes documented, we have an approach called the 2080 approach, which is different from what many companies do. Some of them have got total manuals here, lots of details. People have got, it's described 200% accuracy, whereas EOS says all you need to do is a high level approach. You need to describe the steps of every process, but leave how it's implemented in the end to the person who's in that position. Because if you've got the right key person in that right place, that person will bring the latest technology, their latest training into the process and fill in the gaps. You just need to give the higher level of this is what success looks like, and this is the steps you need to follow to get there. Not in every detail of how to do everything. That's called 2080. Okay, that's the 20-80%. If 80% of your processes are described to 20% at a 20% level, and it's fully documented, and it's been followed by all, that is success. The mistake being made often is that people have their processes described to 100%, but only about 5% of them are followed. Most of them sit on the shelf because they're just too complicated. Okay? Extra time and energy to document up to 100% gets 100% with compliance, but gives you a 700-page SOP manual that nobody ever looks at or uses. And we use this approach of just the major steps, and that's the discipline of it, because that keeps it simple. Once we do that, we all get on the same page, and we then go about getting your core processes followed by all. And followed by all is a mechanism for ensuring everyone in the organization that touched each of these processes has been fully trained, knows the right way of doing things, and is being measured and managed to do it right, the right way every single time. Because you can do that if you have the major steps. And core processes documented, simplified, and followed by all is what creates consistency and scalability, because that's easily scaled. It makes your business easier to manage and makes you have a lot more fun in your business. And ultimately, you're making more profit when everything is done the right and best way every time with your handful of core processes. That's the fifth component, 100% strong. Okay. Now we come finally to traction. The sixth component is the traction component. This is where we bring that vision down to the ground and execute on it with discipline and accountability. Unfortunately, the vision for most entrepreneurs goes unrealized because of the weakness in their traction component. And there are two tools we use. The first one is rocks, and the second one is meeting pulse. Okay. We've spoken about rocks already when we did the 8. Let me go back to it. We spoke about rocks already when we spoke about the VTO, but the rocks are just 3 to 7 company rocks for the next 90 days that the leadership team is driving as a totality for the company. But then also for every person in the organization gets 3 to 7 individual rocks. And what they need to drive in their department and for themselves. And sometimes people on the leadership, members drive some of the company rocks as well. And this tool helps us to have a 90-day world in our organization. Because if you know, every 90 days, we are coming out with new rocks. What are the priorities for the next 90 days? It feels we're all rowing in the same direction. Every 90 days, you have been running like heck in the business and you just come up for air. You will look back on your last quarter and see how you did. You recheck your vision to make sure you're all on the same page, because sometimes you're not. And once you're on the same page, you then set priorities for the next quarter, and we call those quarterlies. And you go back into the business and execute with discipline and accountability for another 90 days. That's the 90-day world we're talking about. Okay. But now with a 90-day world, we also help you establish a weekly meeting pulse. And this, if you do this, you can scrap all your other meetings by just having a level 10 meeting once a week with your leadership team, and your leaders have this with their departments. Okay. And the level 10 meeting, that's called a level 10 meeting because at the end we score ourselves in the level 10 meeting and say, how successful were we in the level 10 meeting? And we start with good news. The good news is where you come in and you ask everyone to tell one piece of good news in their business and in their personal family lives, to lift them immediately from working in the business to going on the balcony and working on the business and have a more creative mind. That's the good news. Then we go through the scorecard that we saw before. It only is 5 minutes. That's all we spent the whole meeting on numbers, because all the numbers were generated throughout the week coming to here. And all you do on the scorecard is you put the numbers in. And if anything is off track, it gets dropped to the issues list. If anything is not happening, it goes to the issues list. You don't discuss it there. It's simply a report, scorecard, 5 minutes, 5 minutes. We look at the rock review. What were the rocks that we're working on? What are getting in the way? What is not happening? And again, it's simply listed. It's on track or it's off track. And if it's off track, it drops to the issues list. We don't discuss it at this stage. But then also customer and employee headlines to keep everyone in the business always focused on what's going on from a higher level. What are our customers saying? What are our employees saying? Are they happy? Are they complaining? There needs to be headlines. And if there are any issues identified, again, they get dropped to the issues list below. Then on the to-do list, what were we supposed to do in the last week or the last 2 weeks? That's on the to-do list. Again, simple report back. This is where I'm on my to-dos. And then if anything there's off track, it drops to the issues list. But then the most important part is on the issues list, we've got 60 minutes, an hour to solve issues like I've described before. We put all those issues that we've got on a board and we prioritize them. And we need to solve at least 3 issues per meeting, the big ones. That's the important one. Sometimes in some meetings, you'll solve 10 or 12. Later on, as the team gets more experienced and they use the IDS and they're open and honest, they will just knock them off very quickly. But the point is that you take those issues and you spend your time on solving issues, not on reporting back, not on giving excuses why things didn't happen, not on other stories. It's very disciplined. So it's 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, and then 60 minutes issue solving, and then it concludes in 5 minutes. Now, the level 10 meeting is really important that you do it the same time every week. It starts on time, it finishes on time, and the focus is on solving of issues, not on reporting back. Reporting back is just one component of it. And when you conclude, there's also a portion where you say, what are the messages that we're taking out of this to the rest of the company? There needs to be, we all need to be on the same page of what are we going to take forward as a leadership team and let them know. Sometimes there's no communication needed out of the meeting, but often there is some. If we've set new goals or we've solved an issue or something is really great news, it's always good to keep the company going forward and people rowing in one direction. Because remember now, you do the level 10 meeting at your level, at the leadership level, but then each leader needs to go do theirs in their departments as well, with their people, their level 10s there as well. So that cascades down the communication and it concludes on time. So that's the level 10 meeting. And this is what you've asked, I think Jordan asked in the beginning, what does a bad meeting look like, or what does a good meeting look like? This is what a good meeting looks like, where there's discipline, where people feel like you are generating traction, you're going forward, and it makes your time together every week valuable, efficient, and productive. And it's 90 days once a week, and it's the only meeting you need. And we always conclude the meeting working together as a team to make sure we're our best in every meeting. And that's the level 10 meeting, 100% strong in the traction component. Okay, so to conclude, that's the EOS model in a South African accent, South African Canadian accent for your pleasure, where we spoke about the 6 key components: vision, data, process, traction, issues, and people, and how they all work together to bring this all together. And remember, all of these 8 questions are on the VTO, and we take that forward. And the first step in getting this is when we look at the system of us, if we, those were the tools. If we now can move into the process of EOS, what we have is a proven process. I'm not sure if you can see all the detail there, it's probably a little small, but what we've discussed now is this first thing is a 90-minute meeting. I typically do that with the leadership team to bring them all on the same page. They understand what EOS is about. This is what you've just gone through. And we speak about us, about you, the tools and the process. Then there's a focus day. A focus day is a 7-hour day, or some of my clients prefer that I do it online. Then we break it up into 4 2-hour sessions over time. And we do in the focus day things like the first tools are developed. We talk about hitting the ceiling. Hitting the ceiling is where every company goes through times where they hit the ceiling in a process where they have to then reorganize themselves, reorganize the processes so that they can break through the ceiling for their next growth phase. We establish the accountability chart for the company. We establish the rocks for the company, establish their meeting pulse, and get their scorecard in place. Then for 30 days, they need to implement this. You can't do these things concurrently or one after the other. There needs to be a process. So the team works, they've got the tools and they start implementing it. 30 days later, there's a 2-day process called the Vision Building Day. This is where we now start building the VTO. where we have the core values, the core focus, the 10-year target, and the marketing strategy. That's the first day. And again, a break until we do the second day, where we look at the 3-year picture, the 1-year plan, quarterly rocks, and the issues list, and we teach how to solve issues. So that's another day. And then it goes into an annual process. These are the quarterlies. Every quarter you have to get together. The leader of the company needs to do their State of the Union address, State of the Company address, and say where we are with our last rocks, but then also set the next rock and the rocks and where we're going. That's every quarter. And then once a year, there's an annual planning 2-day, and it's normally done at a retreat, where you look at focus and traction, team health, quarterly rocks, issue solving, toolbox tools, and accountability. And in here, there's a SWOT analysis as well, to come up with, to smoke out new issues. You do a team and a SWOT analysis. And as far as team health goes, we do exercises out of Patrick Lencioni's 5 dysfunctions of a team. And that's the total process that we go through with EOS. So that's, in a nutshell, very, very quickly, how the whole process, what EOS as a model is, what the 6 key components of EOS are, and what is the process of implementing it. If we look at the previous slide, this whole process for the typical organization takes somewhere between 6 months to 2 years to implement. Some companies come to a certain place and then they take over. Some companies use me to help them do their quarterlies the first year and their first annual, and then I just come in once a year. Some companies are in a place where they say, Nico, you're with us for the rest of your life. Please live a long and fruitful life. And I say, okay, I love it. It's a great journey to be on. But the process of implementing this is really an exciting journey. And what I really love about EOS is that it takes this complex world and it brings it down to 6 key components that you focus on. And each one has got its 2 things that you focus on. And that helps you to drive the process every day and bring you peace of mind and a better life. So thank you so much for your time. Let's hear if there are any questions. Nancy?
Yeah, I was curious about the data side of it, which was all financially driven, and for a not-for-profit, although the financial side's important, our goals are often different than that. I just wondered what experience you have in setting those other goals in a dashboard sort of way.
That's the measurables. Some of the measurables are financial and many of them are not. Some of them, it depends on how much time you spend on developing the correct measurables, which is incredibly important. And it can be things like engagement or feedback from audiences, or it can be, it depends, or it can be a tool that you use to do certain measurements out in the field. It depends really on the measurables.
Nico, I know you mentioned the book Traction, which I've downloaded. It's on my reading list, so I'm going to check that one out. Okay. Any other sort of resources or reading materials or anything you could suggest to kind of look further into this process?
Okay. This is my little pile for all the books. So Traction is the one. How to be a great boss. Okay, Traction is the one. Okay. How to be a great boss. I'll send this to you all afterwards. Okay. What the heck is EOS? If you want the people in your organization to read, this is a very easy read. It's not as complex as Traction. And Good to Great. I love Good to Great. And then Patrick Lencioni's books, The Advantage and the 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. This is actually what the whole system EOS was built on, are these books.
I'm a third of the way there.
That's good.
Okay.
Any more questions? Gina, any questions? Everything crystal clear or highly confused?
No, it's great. A lot of food for thought there. And I see that on Amazon, those books are suggested together. So that's great. I can bundle them into the same, same purchase.
Yeah, sounds good.
So I've got a question. So my organization is really focusing on risk management and trying to work around mitigating risks. And when we were going through this process, I'm curious where like, do risk management line up with the issues, do you think? Or
Yeah.
is risk management where you're going to start driving, I don't know, I don't know. Yeah. So yeah, where does risk management fit in? There's my
Okay, this is an operating system. So what the operating system does, it optimizes how your people work together. They're all moving in the same direction. They all want to go somewhere, and they solve problems together. We want to come to that place where there's nothing in their way stopping them from solving problems. So that's really, really powerful, because risk management is just one of the problems that need to be solved. There are many others, and there's a risk in everything. So those are and by staying on top of them all the time, by solving your issues, you dilute that risk, right? Because you solve certain things and they're solved once and for all, and you can focus on others. So yes, it's absolutely, it's to make your team so strong that together you can help solve those issues. You can manage the risk better.
And I guess thinking about, like in the beginning, all of those questions, the core focus, or maybe that's where the risks start. Like you kind of put those as high priority items or high risk areas.
Yeah, you identified in the beginning stages as, say, for instance, for this particular next 90 days, we want to focus on solving these types of issues, or you can have the direction that you want to go in. Maybe in a certain thing in your plan, you see something like, if we have this in place, we will have fewer risks, or it'll take care of some of our risks. Maybe in your one-year plan, I don't know. Depends on what the risk is. Because first of all, to say a risk is the first step of the identifying and then discussing and then solving. So the issue is risk management, or to alleviate risk, but that's too wide. You can't solve just all of that in an umbrella concept. So if we say, okay, what kinds of risks? What does that risk look like? And break it down and say, okay, this is the first one we're going to work against. And we're going to see how can we minimize this particular risk. Okay? Give me an example of a risk.
Reputational risk.
Yeah. And then you'll ask why, and say our reputation should be better. Then you ask the question, why is our reputation not great?
Right.
And then you say, okay, and someone may say, okay, some people see us in the wrong way or what. Then you ask, why do people see us in that way? And then they say, oh, because this happened in our organization or something. And then you say, okay, why did this happen? Can we have a communication about that? Or can we make sure this never happens again? Then we alleviate that risk. But then you solve at the root of the risk. You're not solving the symptom at the end. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Any last questions, Kit? Any questions, Nancy? All good? Thanks, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'll follow up with an email afterwards, thanking you and sending some resources, and we can take the discussion forward. So thank you so much, and
Thank you.
have a great day.
Thank you, Nico.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Nico. That was
Thank you.
great.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.